And welcome back to the channel. In today's video I'll be sharing with you how to cut a funnel corset. So if this is something you like, please don't forget to hit on the subscribe button. Let's dive right into today's video. So here is my pattern paper, and I've gone ahead to cut out my shoulder to bust, shoulder to under bust, shoulder to waistline and top length. After that, I marked my shoulder divided by 2, and I will be coming down by 1 inch. From that 1 inch, I'll draw my shoulder slope. So for this pattern, we are using a bust dart. And after this, I'll go ahead to mark my chest line or armhole, which is your bust circumference divided by 6 plus 1.5 inches. And I'll go ahead to mark. Mine is 7 inches. So exactly what I have on the shoulder, which is my shoulder divided by 2, I'll mark it on this part, place my ruler, and I'll go ahead to draw a straight line. Next, I'll divide my armhole into 2 and mark, and I will be coming in by ½ inch. Here, I'll go ahead and mark my bust circumference divided by 4, and I'll place my curve through and go ahead to connect. After I'm done connecting, I'm going to go ahead to use my marker to outline this to make it more visible for you to see. So next, I'm going to be marking my dart, and to do that, I'll be marking my nipple to nipple divided by 2. My nipple to nipple is 7 inches divided by 2. I have 3.5 inches. I'm going to go ahead to mark this nipple to nipple measurement all the way down, place my ruler, and I'm going to draw a straight line all the way down. After drawing that, I'll be marking a dart intake of 1 inch for both sides. Now for a plus size, you can go ahead to use 1.5, or if you're a bit busty, you're going to be using 1.5. And after that, I'll just go ahead to connect my pattern this way, and also mark this at the other side of my pattern. Go ahead to take it all the way down. So now I'll be connecting from those lines I marked, and I'll use my marker to outline it to make it visible. The next step you're going to take is to place your curved rule, connect from your bust down to your under bust, and also repeat the same process at the other side of the pattern paper. Now I'm going to use my marker to outline this to make it more visible for you to see. After I'm done doing that, I'm going to be going up by 2 inches because the cup is a bit high. But if you want yours to be low, you can just use 1.5 inches. But I'm using 2 inches for this pattern, and I'll rule a straight line at that point. So next, I'll be marking my nipple to nipple divided by 2. Go ahead and draw a straight line at that point. And after I'm done doing that, I'll be marking 1 inch at both sides of my pattern this way. And I'm going to connect it all the way to my bust, and also connect it all the way to the bust at the other side. So this is what I have here now, and we're going to insert our body measurement. At the bust, I'm going to be marking my bust circumference divided by 4. So my bust circumference is 33 divided by 4. I have 8.3, approximately 8.3, and I'll measure the dart intake I have at the lower part because I don't want it to have much gaping by the side, and I'll mark and then add ½ inch. For this pattern, you do not need too much sewing allowance. I'll mark my under bust circumference divided by 4, measure this dart intake, replace, and I will add my sewing allowance. At the waistline, I'll mark my waist circumference divided by 4, measure the dart intake, replace, and I'll add my sewing allowance. So for this pattern, I'm using ½ inch for the sewing allowance. At the hip point, I'm going to be marking my hip circumference divided by 4, measure this dart intake, and I'm going to replace it and add ½ inch for sewing allowance. I'm going to go ahead to connect my pattern from the bust to the under bust to the waist and down to the hip point. So this is what I have, and I'll use my marker to outline this. So next, I'll go ahead and mark my bust dart. To get your bust dart is the difference from your shoulder to waistline at the front and your shoulder to waistline at the back. That is, if you measure it, you'll notice that you have a difference. So mine is 1.5 inches. So this is because we have a bust at the front and there's no bust at the back of your dress. Now I'll just go ahead and mark that out. After this, I'm just going to go ahead to mark 2 inches upwards from the lower part of my pattern, and I'm going to place my curved rule and I will go ahead to connect. After I'm done connecting at this point, I'm just going to go ahead to use my marker to outline this. So next, I want to go ahead to snatch my waistline, and from this part, I'll divide my pattern into 2 and mark. And I'll just go ahead to place and draw a straight line. So if your under bust and waistline is not the same measurement, what you're going to divide is your waist into 2. I want to take out 4 inches from my original waistline. My original waistline is 28. Taking out 4 inches from it, I'll have 24. So to do that is that 4 inches I'll take out from it. I'll divide it by 4 because we are cutting this pattern or dividing our pattern by 4. Just like any measurement you're placing, you divide it by 4. So if you divide it by 4, you find out that you're going to be having 1 inch. So for each side of your pattern, you're going to be marking 1 inch out. So to mark that 1 inch, I went ahead to mark ½ inch that intake at both sides. So making it 1 inch. So by the time you take out 1 inch from the right side of your front pattern, take out 1 inch from the left side of your front pattern, and also at the back pattern, you're going to still take out that 1 inch from the left part of the back pattern and take out 1 inch from the right part of your back pattern. You will end up taking out 4 inches from your waistline. So taking out that 4 inches is going to make my waistline 24 inches. So this is what I have here after I'm done marking. So I'll just go ahead and I will label my pattern before we start working at the upper part of this pattern. From the bust, I came down by ½ inch and I'll connect from the upper part all the way down. So this is what I have on this point. So from the side, I'll come up by ½ inch and I will be extending my cup towards that part. So this is what I have on my pattern. So after that, I'll just go ahead and use my marker to label or mark this out. And after that, we'll be working on the other part. From the bust line, I came down by 1 inch. And from this part, I'm just going to go ahead to curve it all the way up. So looking at the thumbnail, you notice that at the bustier, it went up a bit. So I'll be going up by 1 inch from the side, and I'll reconnect the lower part of the pattern this way. So this is what I have on this point, and I'll use my marker also to mark out this part and make sure that what you have on the over bust will sit at the same point with the bustier underneath the dress. So this is what I have after I'm done cutting out. So now to cut the rest of the pattern, I'm going to blend this my bust that in this way, and I'll go ahead to pin it. And after I'm done pinning it out, I will be cutting out the rest of my pattern. And before cutting out, I'm going to be putting another pattern paper underneath it, which will stop immediately at my under bust, and I'll go ahead to pin it down. So while cutting, I'm going to take note of the bustier part of this pattern because it's going to replace what I'm going to trace out at the upper part of the dress. So if you have any question regarding this tutorial, please also leave it at the comment section. And if you haven't yet subscribed, please don't forget to hit on the subscribe button. Give this video a thumbs up, and you can also join me on my other channel, which is Marky's Closet. There I have both sewing and drafting tutorials. After cutting out, this is what I have. Now at this part, I'm going to blend here in and I'll cut this out because that part is not part of the bustier. So this is what I have, and the bustier underneath it will be replacing what I have on top. So I'll just go ahead and I will chop or cut this out, and also cut out the other side of the pattern that has the dart that we use in snatching the waistline. So this is what I have after I was done cutting out. So I'll just go ahead and cut out the back pattern. So for the back pattern, I'm gonna head to mark out all the basic measurements just like we did for the front. And the next step I'm going to take is to mark my darts, which is my nipple to nipple divided by 2. And also remember, we used a bust dart, a bust side dart for that. So the pattern at the back will be a bit shorter. So placing my tape, my shoulder to waist line in front is 17 inches. For the back, I have 15.5. So why is that? Because we took out a bust dart of 1.5 inches. So because of that bust dart of 1.5 inches we took out, our length for the back will be shorter than that of the front. So after my shoulder to waistline, which is 15.5, I added 5 inches just like we did for the front for the top length. So for the dart intake, I marked 1/2 inch at both sides. I went ahead to mark it or connect it all the way up and also connect it down. So after this, I'm just going to go ahead to use my marker to outline this and will be inserting my measurements. So yeah, I'll go ahead to mark my bust circumference divided by 4 and I'll add my sewing allowance. Here, I'll mark my waist circumference divided by 4, measure the dart intake, replace and add 1/2 inch for my sewing allowance. Mark my hip circumference at this point and add my sewing allowance. The next step is just to go ahead to place my cuff drill and I'm going to reconnect. Now to snatch my waist, just like we did for the front, I'll divide what I have here into 2 and I'll mark. So I'll go ahead and mark that same 1/2 inch dart intake that we marked for the front, because when I was explaining, I said if you do that for the both sides of your front and also for the both sides of your back, you'll be taking out 4 inches. So I'll just go ahead and I will extend my dart and also mark it all the way to the lower part of this pattern. So I'll just extend here. I'll extend what I have here and also do the same thing at the other side and mark out the dart. So now after I'm done marking out, I'll go ahead to mark out the lacing bar area, but before that I'll come down by 1/2 inch from my chest line, and for the lacing bar area I'll be using 2 inches straight and I'll go ahead to connect. So that 2 inches is not a standard, just go ahead and use what works for you. Now after I'm done doing that, I'll just go ahead to come up by 2 inches just like we did for the front, and I'm going to go ahead to reconnect my pattern and I will label this and I will go ahead to cut this out. Like, this is the final stage of this pattern, and if you have any question regarding this tutorial, please also leave it at the comment section. And if you haven't yet subscribed, please don't forget to hit on the subscribe button, give this video a thumbs up, and also join us in our other tutorials, and also join our other channel, which is Marky's Closet. There we do both cutting and sewing tutorials. So this is what I have after I'm done cutting my pattern.